any child of the late 90s will recognize these synth chords. Drums kicking in, that unforgettable melody going off, the vocals pumping you. Hey, you leave Josuke alone. The vocals pumping you up, and then Pokemon gotta catch 'em all. The catchphrase that defined a decade plus of cartoons, video games, toys, card games, and an entire generation of kids. A catchphrase that actually almost wasn't.
Gotta Catch 'Em All came from Norman Grossfeld, who was the head of production at 4Kids Entertainment, because that became their line. And so we jammed it in there. I don't remember what we did, but we got it in there.
That's John Siegler, a musician slash songwriter slash producer who is one of the driving forces behind some of the most iconic American theme songs of the late 90s and early 2000s. We'll get back to him in a bit. But first, how do we get Gotta Catch 'Em All? Well, you see, it was very loosely based off the Japanese tagline for the show, Pokemon Getto Daze, which loosely translates to something like get those Pokemon. So, with some tweaking and localization, we get Gotta Catch 'Em All. Norman Grossfeld, who was the head of productions for 4Kids Entertainment at the time, said the company went through a bunch of different slogan ideas, including the extremely underwhelming Catch 'Em If You Can. They even used Catch 'Em If You Can for some early iterations of a theme song that never was, and it's probably a good thing they changed their minds, because Catch 'Em If You Can just doesn't sound as motivational. Just imagine if you're a young child setting off on a vast adventure risking life and death to catch 'em if you can? Like, alright, maybe I'll catch him. Maybe I won't. Gotta catch 'em all though? Yeah. Has some urgency behind it. To understand the lightning in a bottle that is Pokemon music, you have to understand the conditions that created it. Prior to his long tenure as the music director for 4Kids from 2000 to 2009, and long before he had ever even heard about Pokemon, John Siegler already had a long and successful career as a professional songwriter and musician. Like many musicians in New York City, Siegler was introduced to the jingle business, a once thriving industry that relied heavily on talented studio musicians who could waltz in, knock out a few riffs, and move on to the next gig. New York was especially fertile ground for this type of work, given its denser concentration of high-profile advertising agencies. The agencies would employ jingle houses to create 30-second earworms for TV and radio, some of which became synonymous with the brands themselves. One of these companies was Rave Music, headed by CEO John Loeffler, a producer, composer, and advertising veteran who ended up producing music for 16 seasons of Pokemon. At that time, Rave Music had already scored several TV shows for 4Kids, so they were the first choice when Pokemon came around.
The jingle business was what kind of drove the studio business in New York, because you went and did a jingle at 10 and you did another one at noon. So when Norman was looking for people to write music for his TV shows, he wanted people who wrote, quote unquote, the big hooks, which was guys like us. And so we all drifted into that business.
The New York jingle scene is also where Siegler met and worked with many of the vocalists whose voices would eventually become synonymous with the U.S. Pokemon. People like James D. Train Williams, a renowned R&B singer, producer, and songwriter who ended up singing the hooks for the Pokérap. He too had found his way into the jingle business by 1989, after the advent of the synthesizer gave birth to New Jack Swing and forever changed the music genre he loved. Speaking of Pokérap, that was actually written by Loeffler and Siegler, who spent hours figuring out how to rap all the little pocket monster names. Other session musicians included beloved singer-songwriter and voice actor Bobby Floyd, who performed the actual Pokérap, and the Pokemon theme song vocalist Jason Page.
There was this whole community. We were all making our living doing jingles, but also playing on records and writing records and doing that kind of thing. So all those singers, Vicky Sue, Bobby Floyd, D-Train. I still work with D-Train now. Bobby passed away. I don't know if you knew that. Curtis King is another guy. I knew them all. That's how I knew Katie Mack. And then I had people coming in, Van East Thomas and Dennis Collins. All those people were singing in the background groups. It was the same crew. The only difference was that we weren't working with that many musicians. I played all the instruments except for guitar. I didn't play guitar. I played guitar, but not well enough. We were all doing it ourselves.
In case the names don't ring a bell, they're all immortalized forever in the annals of Pokemon music history. Actually, actor/singer Vicky Sue Robinson can be heard on Pokemon Dance Mix from the To Be a Master soundtrack. She is most well known as the vocalist for the 1976 disco classic, Turn the Beat Around. Love to hear percussion. Singers like Katie Mack and Curtis King provided backing vocals on a number of classic tracks, many of them co-written by Siegler and Loeffler. When you stop and think about it, it's not surprising that one of the most enduring theme songs of a generation sprang out of the world of commercial jingles. It was an industry dominated by extremely talented composers and musicians who knew how to crank out a tune that would get stuck in your head for the next week or so. How many American kids can sing the Oscar Mayer jingle from memory? Or O'Reilly's Auto Parts. Ow! Not even American. I knew that. These musicians' whole job is getting songs stuck in your head. So the next time, you're trying to fall asleep or something, you're just thinking about that auto parts place.
In a way, it was a relief to move into the TV side of things. We weren't stuck writing 29-second commercials, and we could actually write a full-length song, even though they all had to end up being 60 seconds. So that was another thing that we were good at, was we knew how to cram it all into 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
But out of those earworms came some truly enduring classics, even surprising ones like the Pokérap, whose sole purpose was to name all 150 original Pokemon. And it was something that fans genuinely look forward to. Ash would say,
"Don't go away, the Pokérap is next!"
And a lot of kids would just all stay glued to their TVs, wondering which Pokemon would be featured next. Just for context, they'd list 30 Pokemon each episode, and by the end of the week, you'd have all 150 Pokemon. Electro, Diglett, Nidoran, Mankey, Venusaur, Rattata, Fearow, Pidgey, Seaking, Jolteon, Dragonite, Ghastly, Ponyta, Vaporeon, Poliwrath, Butterfree, catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon, bow! Out of all the Pokemon music, the Pokérap is actually one of Siegler's least favorite. In 2014 interview with The Week, he said it wasn't really a song, it was more of a way of saying 150 odd Pokemon names, so it wasn't particularly musically interesting to me. It was just a groove and people yelling Pokemon names. But it stuck, fans loved it, and it became an intrinsic part of the Pokemon franchise. Even international versions of Pokemon just localized and adapted the Pokérap for their local audience. Here's the Pokérap in German.
Ich will der Beste sein, so gut wie keiner war. Ich fang sie alle ein, ich kenne die Gefahr. Leckerball, Dick, Dan, Nidoran, Mankey, Isaflor, Radfratz, Ibitak, Taubsi.
Here is a small sample of the Pokérap in Danish.
Nu rejser jeg afsted, ud i det blå, og fanger Pokémon, ligesom mange kan få. Venomer, Poliwag, Nidorino, Golda, Ivysaur, Grimer, Victreebel, Moltres.
It wasn't just the Pokérap. The American adaptation of Pokemon was so standardized internationally that all of the music basically carried over. Here's the American Pokemon opening theme in Swedish. Seriously, for a fun exercise, just type Pokemon intro plus almost whatever language you want, and you'll get a localized version of the Pokemon music. Here's the localized Korean Pokemon intro, by the way. What a bop! Fun fact, there's actually more covers that use Siegler's versions than don't. We got Russian, Bulgarian, Serbian, Hebrew, Arabic, Macedonian, Catalan, and you get it. You could say that the opening theme song is one of the most enduring legacies of the American adaptation of Pokemon. We connected with Jason Page, the singer of the legendary song, to discuss the song's humble beginnings and how it became the voice of a generation.
Well, it was a jingle house that I worked for numbers of times before. I had a couple-year history doing spots like Domino's Pizza Delivers and other interesting projects. And each project is totally unique and individual. And I try to embody the motive of whatever the client is. They're selling pizza. I really want to make that pizza appetizing. So it's all embedded in the lyrics. What is this about? What are we selling? Who are we? And what are we trying to communicate? The character who is singing, we determined was Ash, and it was representative of his thoughts and his process, even though we didn't really know the Pokemon story very well. They were crafting the lyrics hand in hand with the company so that they could represent what the company wanted at the time. We were watching clips and looked a lot like Speed Racer to me, which I related to. That was one of my jams back in the day. Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go. But he looks kind of like a younger Speed Racer. And then we just move things around in the session, change a melody here and there, augment a riff. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all. Variations happen musically, and it's just a bunch of really skilled craftsmen working together to satisfy the motive.
It didn't matter that no one in the room knew or understood what Pokemon was. They had a solid catchphrase, no pun intended, talented composers, and once they understood that the show was about friendship, that's all they needed.
We didn't know, but if we had read the lyrics, it all made sense. It's just that Pokemon themselves were not familiar to us, but friendship is very familiar, and individuality and our unique way of doing things is all familiar to us, and all that's embedded in the lyrics and teaching each other. Everything else is just sort of the generalizations of good living, facing challenges with courage and teaching each other, all of that good stuff.
Fast forward several months and Pokemon was a verified hit in the US. The games were selling like hotcakes and all the kids were glued to the screen, watching a yellow rat with red cheeks electrocute a 10-year-old and singing along to the localized English opening theme song. But behind the scenes, another big part of the localization process was creating the scoring of the anime. In the US version of the show, about 1/3 of the music was original Japanese scoring. The other 2/3 were done by artists John Lasauer and Manny Carollo, and all the tracks were used in the 8 seasons that John Siegler was involved in. Also have to give credit to Ralph Schuckett, who was the composer for the Pokemon movies. And while most fans would mostly remember the songs, we have to give thanks to the hard work these musicians put in to help create the sound of the Pokemon anime world. By April 1999, the franchise had pulled in over $200 million in revenue in just the United States alone, with dozens of licensing deals for products like action figures, lunchboxes, toys, and just about everything in between. Naturally, a lot of these commercials also used the theme song, so that started getting a ton of airtime, ironically turning the song back into a jingle. So, 4Kids did what any company sitting on a wildly popular theme song would do. It decided to put out an entire album of original music, and thus, To Be a Master was born. They went back to rave music with Joan Loeffler and John Siegler and asked them to start laying down tracks. The entire album took less than a month to make and had 13 original songs sung by a bunch of different session vocalists.
We had a hit television show. We had that song. We had a music company. And in that company, there were 5 composers. We all just said, look, we gotta write songs about Pokemon, and Norman again was involved and actually wrote lyrics for some of the stuff that I wrote and made suggestions about, well, why don't you write a song about this, and why don't you write a song about this aspect. And so guys were looking at a list of song ideas, not necessarily actual lyrics or anything, a song about Jigglypuff, or a song about this, or a song about that, and there was a long list, and everybody just sort of cherry-picked. One song that I did had already existed, called Pokemon Dance, or something like that. That song I wrote for the original sales film. In fact, that might have been written before the big theme song. That might have been the first thing we wrote. It was completely different, and then I repurposed it and made it into like a dance song. At that time, I think like Cher had that really big hit. You know this song. But anyway, different guys wrote different songs. If you look at the album cover, you'll see names of all the guys that were in our company at the time. Everybody got at least one song in there. And I got 5 because I was one of the bosses. So
The album was officially released on June 29th, 1999. It immediately shot to the top of the Billboard charts for kids' albums, beating out a couple of Walt Disney's Tarzan read and sing-alongs, the Phantom Menace read-along, and the first VeggieTunes album. Surprised with that one. How could they beat the juggernaut VeggieTales? Anyhow, To Be a Master spent 46 weeks on the charts, selling 500,000 copies in the US in 4 months. Within 4 years, that number would climb to 3 million copies worldwide. The album featured full versions of the Pokemon theme song, the boppy Together Forever with session singer J.P. Hartman, and a funky rap track called What Kind of Pokemon Are You? That taught aspiring trainers about Pokemon types with educational lyrics like, good luck with mucking its poison gas, make one wrong move and it'll kick your grass. That was also the title track To Be a Master, Pokemon Master, co-written by Loeffler and singer Russell Velasquez, who also did the vocals for the second Pokemon theme, Pokemon World. Russell Velasquez is another incredibly accomplished musician. He has since done a Emmy-nominated composition work for The Muppets. Oh, in case you're wondering, yes, the entire soundtrack was dubbed into other languages too. You know, in case you ever wanted to listen to Be a Master in Russian. Nice. Part of the appeal was undoubtedly tied into the appeal of the Pokemon franchise itself, but some of these songs have really held up. It helps that they were written to be reflective of the popular songs of the time and not just generic kid songs.
Well, our intention and one of our things, and this is a John Loeffler thing, what he always said, he said, look, we're writing songs for cartoon shows that are meant to be watched and listened to by children. But that doesn't mean we should play down to them and pull out the marimbas and the ukuleles and ding, ding, ding. We want to play up to them. We want to make current pop music that's also very tuneful and sing-alongable and all those things that you want. But we don't want to play down just because, you know, the kids are whatever the demographic was. We want to play up to it, if anything. You know, that was always our intention, to pretend that we were like writing pop records. You know, that was what our intention was.
With all that success, you would think everyone performing would be making bank. Well, not exactly. Sure, To Be a Master soundtrack was wildly popular worldwide, but that money didn't exactly trickle down to the artists. For the session singers who were paid to show up in the studio and belt out a track, that was pretty much it. For the in-series music, 4 kids paid per season without residuals. The singers would receive a buyout every 6 months for a couple of years, and that was it. When the show went into syndication, none of the singers received additional compensation. Even Jason Page, whose voice was used in dozens of commercial spots, was never monetarily benefited from the theme's runaway success, since his contract didn't include royalties from any licensed product that used the theme. Many of the vocalists tried to sue, but nothing really came of it. Page eventually entered talks with 7 different Pokemon-related companies who used his voice to promote their products, but in the end, a settlement was negotiated out of court to an amount in the mid-5 figures. It was a decent chunk of money for a song that took about 4 hours to record, but it was a drop in the Pokemon bucket, which was worth about $10 billion worldwide in 2000. Well, sadness aside, hot on the heels of the success of the Pokemon and To Be a Master, 4 kids went full in on the music for the franchise. The soundtrack for the first Pokemon movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, was released in November 1999, and that saw some contemporary stars like Britney Spears, NSYNC, 98 Degrees, and Vitamin C, that one singer that every old high school graduation played. As we go on, we remember all the times we had together. The opening theme song was re-recorded as a dance track featuring vocals by pop singer Billy Crawford.
Wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test. Training is my cause.
It was an absolute hit. The album hit number 8 in the US Billboard 200s and went double platinum, even though Entertainment Weekly called it a sticky sweet grade school party. The following summer saw the release of the second movie, Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Power of One. It didn't make as much money in the box office as the first one, but it still did reasonably well. The soundtrack repurposed the second season theme, Pokemon World, with a cover by Youngstown and Nobody's Angel, who performed it live to a screaming crowd at the premiere of the film. Like the first movie soundtrack, this one also had songs from contemporary stars like Weird Al Yankovic, the B-52s, and reality showboy band O-Town. It did worse than the first soundtrack, only squeaking to a Billboard high of 85. Meanwhile, plans are being laid for an even bigger Pokemon music takeover, culminating in what would eventually be the music for the third season, the Johto Journeys, and the accompanying studio soundtrack, Totally Pokemon. Instead of using a slate of session singers though, it featured Johto, a sextet made up of 3 guys and 3 gals, handpicked by John Loeffler and the team at Rave Music from auditions that were held in New York in the summer of 2000s to create the greatest Pokemon pop group that ever was. The intention was to build a Pokemon pop group like S Club 7, I guess, for Pokemon. There were even plans for a promotional tour, but it just never happened. The tour was cancelled, and even though the album contains some certified bops, the next time it was released in January 2001, it barely made a blip. By then, people had just simply lost interest in Pokemon. Even as early as June 2000, Pokemon as a franchise was showing signs of a slump. Between the spring and summer, viewership for Saturday morning broadcast was only 1.8 million. Down by almost 1 million viewers from just the first quarter. Network execs hoped that it was just a summer slump and crossed their fingers that the release of the second Pokemon movie would give their ratings a boost in time for fall. But by the end of the year, it was clear that the kids had already moved on. Sales for the trading card game plummeted, with Hasbro reporting substantial losses for the winter of 2000, which continued well into 2001, with first quarter losses totaling $25 million. Collectors who poured all their lunch money into rare cards just a year earlier suddenly found themselves sitting on nearly worthless rectangles of cardboard. Of course, 20 years later, we can see pretty clearly that Pokemon never really went away in the US. The show is in its 23rd season now, with the most recent streaming on Netflix. The games continue to do very well, and it'd be hard to find a kid who doesn't know who Pikachu is. And of course, there's the wild mainstream popularity of Pokemon Go, which hit all the right nostalgia buttons for an entire generation raised on Pokemon. And for the collectors who poured all their lunch money into rare cards, well, if they kept those rare cards in rare mint conditions, well, looks like they made it to the big leagues. Maybe it is nostalgia that keeps the first season forefront in everyone's minds even now. After 23 seasons of music, it's arguably still the first opening theme that people remember the best. Despite all the legal headaches that Jason Page went through with Pokemon, he seems to have come to terms with the experience. Google him now and you'll find dozens of interviews with him, mostly about Pokemon. It helps, maybe, that he had a full career of composing, singing, and touring. You can't see him here, but he's in the pit, rapping in the middle of MJ's Black or White at the 30th anniversary show at Madison Square Garden. And there's all the commercial jingles you probably didn't even know was him.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Oh, Coca-Cola.
But he's come to appreciate his role in the Pokemon phenomenon. Go to his YouTube channel now and you'll see plenty of Pokemon related content, including a recent video of him in the studio belting out the theme. He even recorded a parody in 2012 that went viral in support of presidential candidate Ron Paul, using a fresh karaoke track he had created for a scrapped Guitar Hero level. When you ask him now if it's surreal to be known as the Pokemon guy though, he's the first to agree.
Was trying to frame this idea yesterday or 2 days ago when I was listening to Tonight's the Night We'll Make History, Honey, You and I, a Styx song, Rockin' the Paradise, that was embedded in my 10 to 15-year-old self in a way that is the only thing I can compare to Pokemon, except that was just one band and one album. That music that I listened to in that song, Rockin' the Paradise, moves through my body, triggering the memory that's embedded in me of how I felt when I listened to that song and what I did, and it just brought me to tears. And I thought, wow, this is probably similar to what people who experience Pokemon 10 to 20 years later feel, this thing that has moved them in so many ways because they've spent so much time living the lyrics in the gameplay that they experience. In my case, I knew it was Dennis DeYoung and Styx, and I knew what they looked like. But in their case, they didn't know who I was or what I looked like, or maybe not even thought that I was a person, but just this voice that drove the TV show and their ideas with the lyrics that drove their ideas even more so. When they find out that I'm a real human being, a lot of times they don't believe it. Like, they can't believe that they're meeting this person that they first didn't even think really existed, because I was never represented in a visual way, nor was I represented as a name either on much of the credits. So when they find out, they just are struck in this way that's not really starstruck, because I'm not a star, but this is a star of your imagination. It's very, very unique. I don't think it really exists in any other form. If I met the guy who sang the Speed Racer theme song, I would just be like, oh, that's cool. But Speed Racer didn't dominate my life, and it didn't exist for 20 plus years. Extremely surreal.
Now, though, with the enduring popularity of the song and his willingness to embrace his legacy as the Pokemon guy, there is finally a face to the voice. With Pokemon Go's release in 2016, there was a renewed interest in the song. Believe it or not, that year was actually the first time Page ever even performed the song live as a guest at LA Comic-Con.
I think I came at it at the right time. In 2016, Pokemon Go came out. And until then, besides the Ron Paul remix, I didn't spend 16 years singing it as much as I have in the past 3 years. So I didn't get sick of it. However, I also didn't spread the word of who I was for 16 years. And I think that that's sort of part and parcel with its success, because it was not about a person who has this song out and he's out there trying to promote himself through the song like an artist, like every other artist you see. This is about the motive of the show. So all I'm really doing in 2016 is responding to that success. And that's one of the other unique things about it. I knew how popular it was, but I didn't know how embedded it was in people's experiences and how much they got from it until the internet started leaving comments and letters, and I started getting invited to Comic-Cons to sing it and see people's response to it.
Since then, he's been performing at comic conventions and video game concerts around the world, where crowds may not know who he is, but they definitely know the song. It's an amazing sight hearing him get drowned out by exciting crowds in Qatar or Malaysia, where everyone still knows every lyric by heart.
It's an incredible experience. They've done all the work, and now I'm just trying to catch up. All of these people who have been into the Pokemon ecosystem have done all the play. And the more they play, the more it becomes a part of their experience, and the more impactful it is when I perform for them. So for me, it's just this wonderful reuniting with people that I didn't know were my fans. And it's them reuniting with this best friend that they didn't know they had, because it was not represented as a human being, but just as a voice. It's phenomenal. And the Pokemon fans are so sweet, so nice, and so giving. The autograph sessions are fabulous confessions of each person's unique experience with the ecosystem, and somebody does art and some other person is doing cosplay and somebody else is now making video games, and like somebody's bringing their kids and their parents are in the background going, yeah, I introduced them to it 20 years old. Now I'm, 3 generations in. They're taking pictures of their kids, taking pictures with their kids. It's really spectacular.
All right, thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon, press the the rectangles and the squares that come up. By the way, they're called end cards. Yeah, that's the YouTube tip I'm giving to you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna end this with I'm just gonna end with singing that what kind of Pokemon are you thing? What kind of Pokemon are you? How do you do the things you do? Share with me your secrets deep inside. What kind of Pokemon are you? And
to catch Crunchyroll subscribers is our real test, and to train them is our cause.